Dr. Kevin Brown, President of the University of Technology, Jamaica. I believe he's online. Okay. Acting Deputy President and Provost, Professor Shermaine Barrett. Dean of the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies. He's not here yet, but he will be joining us, Dr. Harold McDermott. Our esteemed panel list, you can see them there, specially invited guests, participants joining us online, principals and students, and my audience in the room. Welcome. I want to welcome you all to the University of Technology Jamaica, the birthplace of greatness. Here we embody the motto, excellence through knowledge. And so we want to demonstrate this tonight by addressing the critical state of the teaching profession in Jamaica. Building on our inaugural summit, which focused on, is the teaching profession moribund? We present our second summit under the theme, Teacher Wellbeing and Working Conditions, Catalyst for Quality Teaching. Tonight's dialogue aims to explore the diverse perspectives on teacher well-being and working conditions and the impact on teacher quality. Our esteemed and well-abled panelists comprises of an education officer, master teacher, inclusive education researcher, president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, and an associate professor in education. They will indeed stimulate our minds and delve into the challenges Jamaican teachers face in their classrooms. They will also examine the factors that enable or hinder improvements in the teaching conditions and well-being. The Patterson Report highlighted that teachers face high expectations, yet school contextual challenges often impede their ability to meet these demands. I am Dr. Hope Main, Acting Associate Vice President for the Office of Teaching and Learning here at UTech, and I will be your chair for this evening. I now invite Dr. Peter, Acting Vice Dean of the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, to bless this evening's proceedings.
Let us pray. Eternal God and our Father, who dwell in heaven, there is no God like you, in heaven, on the earth, or under the sea. And so we ask, Lord, that you hear from heaven as we commence our second Education Teacher Summit. We pray, oh God, that you will be with the chair, the moderator, our esteemed panelists, and our attendees. We pray, oh God, as we search for solution in a time like this, that your Holy Spirit and your divine wisdom will guide us, and we will have the solution that we need to move the teaching profession forward. We thank you for those who put this together, the technical team and the others, and we pray, oh God, that we'll have a fruitful summit. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Dr. Peter. And now I will just provide an overview of our summit. Now, this summit focuses on teacher well-being, as you all know, and this is a crucial aspect, and it is often overshadowed by the technicalities of teaching. Now, we aim to emphasize the importance of teacher well-being in achieving job satisfaction and a higher quality of life. We will explore the motivations that drive teacher performance. Is it salary? Is it job commitment? Is it passion? Is it working conditions? What is it exactly? What are the factors which influences teacher retention in Jamaica? The UNESCO panel report of 2020 stated that teachers play a vital role in preparing learners for work and society, but their social relevance is increasingly overlooked in a changing society and the economy. Working conditions, they note, are strongly related to teacher well-being and can be categorized into two categories: psychological and psychosocial factors. Now, at the University of Technology, Jamaica, the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, we have done some extensive work in the secondary high schools to assess pre-service teachers. Now, this work has revealed the numerous challenges our teachers face in terms of working conditions and their well-being. We are definitely troubled by these observations, and we're also troubled by the declining enrollment in our teacher education programs. So, therefore, we organized this summit to really deconstruct these issues. The Teacher Education Summit is the brainchild of Professor Barrett, and it is supported by committee members, which include myself, Dr. Granville Pitter, Mrs. Nayoka Linda Simpson, and Miss Janelle Stone, among others who have helped us to put this together. Now, the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies, it has two schools. The School of Technical and Vocational Education, which we prepare students to teach and work in STEM TVET fields such as industrial technology, food service production management, business and computer studies. And we also have the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, which focuses on communication arts and technology, supplemented by other disciplines such as academic writing, foreign languages, sociology, psychology, ethics, philosophy, and politics. So you see, we are well positioned or well poised to host this critical discussion. And so I now introduce you to our moderator this evening. You all know her. I think you know her. She is Professor Barrett. So just to briefly tell you who she is. Now, Dr. Barrett, she is a professor of adult education and workforce development at the University of Technology, Jamaica, where she is currently the Deputy President and Provost acting. She holds a PhD in Work and Human Resource Education, majoring in adult education from the University of Minnesota, USA, and she holds a master's in adult education from the Mount St. Vincent University in Halifax, Canada. Her research interests includes adult teaching and learning, online teaching and learning, workforce education, STEM and TVET education, and teacher professional development. I now welcome her to guide or facilitate this discussion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Main. And we have been having a very romantic sounding evening so far. Well, I know what to do those major kind of dance, so I have to make it a little more, so let's go. Anyway, I'm very happy to have you all with us this evening. I know that it is a very strange evening because of some major things happening in the country. But we have many persons online and we want to welcome them and thank you for choosing us over Messi. I chose you over Messi as well. And thank you to all those who are in the room and in particular our panelists as we come together to discuss a very, very important topic. But I want to, as part of the introductory comments to start off the discussion, I want to put the summit within context. So what led to this? Well, I have been head of the School of Technical and Vocational Education, where we prepare teachers for the technical aspect of the secondary level. And I've been dean of the Faculty of Education in which the school is housed. And I have watched, and I have been a teacher in the area, and I have watched our applications for teaching. I describe it as plummet. Plummet. In case anybody said they didn't hear me. And we have been trying over and over. I say to my president, well, if nobody advertises, if nobody markets, Fells market. We are ever out in the field, working hard, not waiting on anybody to get the students in. But you know what? There's a song we had in Sunday school that said, bringing in the sheaves. Well, we don't have none to bring. I have watched, and we have to, in order to create change, you have to expose what is happening. And I have watched our business students studies numbers drop from 200s down to 30. Isn't that reason for alarm? I find it is so. And I am not convinced that it is salary. I'm not convinced, because majority of Jamaicans earn less than teachers. I'll say that again. Majority of Jamaica. It's because it's what? How many teachers you have? Like, I think with the last time I look, I don't want to name, but it's Jamaica is 2.7. They love to say 3 million, 2.7 million. I like to say 3 million. And of that number, we haven't even reached 25,000 teachers. We haven't even reached 30,000. It means that majority of Jamaicans are earning below teachers. So that cannot be the issue. And we beg to posit, which is the premise on which this summit was established, that something else is happening. That's why last year we said, is it moribund? Is it dying? Is teaching dying? And we left that summit saying, no, it is not dying. Then we have to ask, what is happening then? We are arguing, and I feel strongly. And as I did an interview on TVJ this morning, and as I said to them, if you are a student fighting, beating up teacher, beating up your friends, beating up, so you think you're going to willingly say, oh, let me go learn to come back in here and have teachers students beat me up? Who is going to do that? Which of our students is going to really sit down and reflect and say, I really like this context where I can't discipline any student, because if I discipline them, I go to court, the student go home and sit down. The parents beat me up. Okay, they throw a chair at me, and if I throw a chair at them, they say, you are wrong, you should know better. Who is going to meditate on that and say yes? So I believe that the government of Jamaica, through the ministry, has a responsibility to address this issue. And so we felt that we would look at it, look at the issue of teacher well-being, look at the working conditions, because we are in agreement with the literature that those things are catalysts for quality teaching. And so that's why we are here this evening. And I want to draw your attention to the Pattison report. And they noted that the education policy specialists all agree that teaching constitutes the most crucial element of the education system and must be a priority focus, must be the priority focus of attempts to improve performance outcomes linked to learning. But colleagues here and online, every time I look at new interventions from the ministry, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I don't see no intervention for teachers. It has never been. Oh, it is STEM. They need to learn about Marcus Garvey. They need to learn about, it's always about what students need to learn. But the well-being of teachers, the centrality of teachers is not acknowledged. So I visited Trend again last night, just in case something has changed. And it's there again. There's a section marked teaching and teaching curriculum. When you read the details of it, nothing about teacher. The report argues that restoring the centrality of the role of teachers to a successful education system is crucial for how they are perceived by their community. And these series, we have now established it as an annual summit in which we are going to interrogate matters related to teachers. And so I'm happy for those of you who are joining us. Tonight, we have chosen also not to have a one speaker. Not interested in that. So the modality we have chosen is to have a panel discussion. And tonight we have 6 experts to share with us. One is there. You might not see him, but he's there. He will soon emerge in person, but he is on his way. And I'm going to just share briefly, introduce each of them, so that when it's their time to speak, I will just invite them up, and just to remind them that they had 3 to 5 minutes to speak, such that you can ask questions, I can ask them questions to interrogate the topic, and I can also get our online participants to join in. So I'm reading in no particular order. So I'm going to begin with Mr. Stephen Francis. So this is Mr. Stephen Francis. Lift up your hand so they see you. Yes. He's a Chevening scholar and multidisciplinary professional, adept in research design, policy analysis, and curriculum development, undergraduate of the University of Technology, Jamaica, holding an MSc in education, leadership, and policy with distinction from the University of Bristol, and a BSc in science and education from the University of Technology, Jamaica. His professional experience spans industry and academia, roles with organizations based in Jamaica, the United Kingdom, and the United States. He has a proven track record in policy analysis, utilizing qualitative and quantitative research methods, and shaping curriculum design. His advocacy focuses on social justice, equal access to quality education, and the decolonization of educational spaces. With a background in research across natural and social sciences, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, secondary and post-secondary STEM education, and youth advocacy, Stephen brings a unique blend of skills to contribute to the impactful policy analysis and research design initiatives. Stephen is currently the Senior Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Officer with the Democracy International's Field Office in Jamaica. Let's welcome him. Right, and while you clap, I'll bring up the next one. So, secondly, we have Mrs. Kennessy Haynes Davidson. And she's a graduate of the Micah Teachers College and the Micah University College. Kennessy is currently the Assistant Chief Education Officer for the Guidance and Counseling Unit in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth, and Information. A trained teacher with specialization in guidance and counseling and social work, Kennessy has been employing her knowledge, skills, and expertise in the service of education since 1999, when she began as a guidance counselor at the Port Maria Comprehensive High School, now Wycliffe Martin High, located in Bailey's Vale, St. Mary. Well, that I did not know, that it was renamed. Wow. That one hit me. Her engagement at central ministry level began in 2006 when she coordinated the program for Alternative Student Support, PASS. She has since served at the regional level as education officer, then senior education officer respectively in regions 5 and 3, which is Mandeville and Brownstown. Driven by the desire to be a positive influence to others, she is deliberate in utilizing her gifts, talents, education, and other experiences to create impact. A powerhouse of a motivational speaker, she draws on her childhood experiences to strengthen her resolve to help others overcome. She's constantly seeking innovative initiatives that support the attainment of the ministry's transforming education for national development trend agenda, and by extension, ensuring that our children and youth maximize access to quality educational programs and content. A firm believer in God, Kennessy pulls on her faith to help her navigate an ever-changing world and asks daily for strength to cope with his will. As an educator, she believes that teaching is a complex yet simple process that is mastered only by individuals who have an insatiable desire to positively change lives. Welcome her. And then we move on to Mrs. Eileen Cohal Bailey, the Master Teacher, TVET Teacher of the Year. And I sighed because Eileen has asked me to navigate a poem or something in doing this. Okay, so let's see if I can navigate it well. So I'm going to start a little about her. An appointed master teacher of home economics, head of department of Manning's School, Home Economics Department, School Improvement Plan Team Lead for the Manning School, awardee, Ministry of Education, LASCO, Jamaica Teaching Council, TVET Teacher of the Year. I can't wait to get there. So graduate of the University of Technology, Jamaica, one of our teachers. And so we're very proud when she got her award. She has acted as vice principal of academics in the Manning School for a short while. She facilitated the JTC Summer Matrix Managing My Professional Appraisal Instrument and documents in 2024. She's an awardee of the Manning's Past Student Association New York Master Teacher Award for dedicated service to Manning School. And she got this in October 2024. She collaborated with LASCO Chin Foundation to host professional development workshops in 2024 at Manning School, fostering inclusive classrooms and building students' confidence. She is the Ministry of Education LASCO Award Certificate of Appreciation, Innovative Teaching in the Widening Space in recognition for outstanding performance during the COVID-19 pandemic period. She is research chairperson of the Jamaican Home Economics Association. She's a registered teacher, trained assessor, trained verifier, trainer of trainers, family and consumer management, experience in competency-based training, taught at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, trained mentor, head of Manning School Mentorship Program, launched in 2023, Curriculum General Management Committee member. I should take a breather, a little breather. COVID-19 support contributor for the Family and Resource Management. Notes, okay, I'm gonna miss that one. So board member, assistant secretary, planning committee chair, catering committee chair at Torrington Wesleyan Holiness Church, member Jamaica Teachers Association, member OAS International Teacher Education Network. And I'm going to stop there tonight. Welcome her, please. I could tell you more and more and more, but I'll take a break just there. Thank you. All right, so now we go to Dr. Eraldine Williams Shakespeare, one of us. Dr. Eraldine Williams Shakespeare, and I'm going to do a little surgery here too, is an educator and certified instructional designer and evaluator with over 23 years of experience in education. She's an associate professor in the Faculty of Education and Liberal Studies at the University of Technology, Jamaica, and serves as the program leader and has served as the program leader for the Postgraduate Diploma in Education program. Other professional engagements include serving in the post of online learning coordinator for the Monmouth University, New Jersey, USA, and working in technology with the Florida Center for Instructional Technology. She holds a PhD in curriculum and instruction with emphasis in instructional technology from the University of South Florida, Tampa. She also has a Master of Arts in Open, Distance, and Flexible Learning from the University of London External College, a Bachelor of Education from the University of Technology, Jamaica, and multiple graduate certificates from the University of South Florida and the University of Jilin in China. An avid researcher, Dr. William Shakespeare has published in several local and international peer-reviewed journals and has research interest in distance and online learning, interactions in online learning environments, online learning communities, and communities of practice, technologies in teacher education, curriculum development and planning, teacher education, online curricula, and women in doctoral studies. She currently serves as chair of the Northern Clarendon Heritage Foundation, which was established to preserve the cultural, historical, and geographical legacy of North Clarendon, and chair of the Board of Management, Brandon Hill Primary. She's a member of the Portmore United Church, where she serves as secretary for the Adults Driven by Purpose Auxiliary Group, a registered private planter with the Forestry Department, and mother of 3 girls. She puts it all out there. Welcome, Dr. Eraldine Shakespeare. And we, as I said, one of my persons is now here in spirit. So we'll do Mark. And so our last person who is here with us now, Mark Malava, has dedicated over 20 years to the education sector. His career began as a classroom teacher at Charlie Smith High School. He later became principal of Yallis High School, where he led a transformative journey to improve the institution. He holds a bachelor's degree in history and literature from the University of the West Indies and a master's in teaching. Currently, Mr. Malava is a PhD candidate in educational leadership and management at the University of Technology, Jamaica. His doctoral research, titled Crisis Leadership, Rural High School Principles, Leadership Practices During COVID-19, explores leadership strategies in times of crisis. And so let's welcome Mr. Malava. I think what I will do is to introduce the final panelist. And so when he comes, and it's his time to speak, he can just go right ahead. So allow me to pull up his, please. And I'm not even pulling it up, so I might have to wait until he, right here. Okay, so Dr. Mark Smith, who is on his way, is a career educator. He presently serves as the headmaster of Monroe College, St. Elizabeth. Prior to holding this office, he served as an education officer with the Ministry of Education. He has over 23 years of experience in the delivery, development, and administration of education in Jamaica. He holds a doctoral degree in educational leadership and administration from Temple University and a Master of Education in Teaching and Learning degree from St. Mary's University in Minnesota. In addition, he holds a degree in counseling and a diploma in visual arts. Wow, what a mix. Fueled by a strong commitment to lifelong learning, he has also embarked on and is certified in a series of advanced studies in the areas of artificial intelligence, business administration, neurolinguistics, programming, educational leadership, optoelectronics, and computer networking. And then listen to this part, to name a few. Okay, to name a few. Prior to joining the Ministry of Education, Dr. Smith was employed at Vere Technical High School for several years, serving as the head of department before eventually serving as vice principal. He also served as a lead inspector with the National Education Inspectorate, with responsibility for the quality assurance and supervision of inspection teams. Dr. Smith also served as a lecturer facilitator with the National College for Educational Leadership. In addition, he has served as teacher at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of the education system. He also serves as a member of the NCTVET Regional Advisory Committee. In addition, he served as vice chairman of the Local Economic Development Parish Advisory Committee for St. Elizabeth, for the St. Elizabeth Parish Council. Dr. Smith also represented Jamaica as part of the delegation that participated in the CARICOM Education Subcommittee Conference, re-establishing common standards for the teaching profession. Let's welcome him in absentia. All right, so tonight we are going to be having each speaker share with us, and you come to the podium to share, then you sit and then we'll talk, okay? But you come to the podium to share. So I'm going to begin with, let me get the name correct. I know it's Kohal. I need a full name. So Mrs. Kohal, you could come and do your 5 minutes presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Main. Sorry, Dr. Barrett. Good evening, everyone. This evening, I want to indulge you in looking at teacher well-being catalyst for quality education. But I'll be looking on, next slide, workload and time management. And with that, we look at the teaching hours versus administrative duties, planning and preparation time, and policies for leave and flexibility. This is, you can relate with this picture. Most persons, persons online, good afternoon also to you. Look at that person up there. That's a replica of Jamaican teachers. Yes, Jamaican teachers face numerous challenges that impact our well-being and ability to provide quality education. And this is a stressed teacher with a heavy workload, and that is most of us. Teachers in Jamaica spend a significant amount of time on administrative duties, taking away from the teaching hours. We need to strike a better balance. And I know that most persons who are listening or watching at this moment, you can relate to this. This is what we are going through. We need time to plan and prepare. Why is it so important that we plan? We are the ones who are going to be blamed when you cannot get the results. So planning enables effective lesson delivery. It enhances teachers' confidence and competence, because we are in this age where we talk about competency-based learning and teaching too, because we are looking at, can we manage it? Can we do the job? Not in relation to another person, but we are put in this position. Are we able to do it? So that is competency. So it's not a matter of fail or pass, but can you do it? It supports, let's continue, all right? Every teacher's wish list. I know that you can relate to this again. Every teacher in Jamaica and across the world, you want organized classrooms, you want clean environment, you want students that are engaged, you want adequate resources, and I won't get into that one because we know how it is. We need adequate planning time, adequate teaching hours. And I want you to help me with this one. You can help me, man. Supportive parents and school culture. Let's say that again. Supportive parents and school culture. All these and more make a happy and relaxed teacher, providing quality education. Well, you might say that's a perfect space. And I chose it because, yes, nice, happy teacher, happy students. And we see all of the resources. Well, nice to start bookshelves. And I suppose the computers and other things would be put away safely out of the students' reach until they are ready to use them. But guess what? It's time for a reality check. This is what we are faced with. Increased workload and administrative duties, limited resource and support, crammed classroom spaces. Not only are the students unruly, but the parents and the guardians and whoever else in charge of them. Timetable overload and a poor work-life balance. We are looking at the teacher. When we were in college, we looked at the roles of the teacher. And surely, if you look at these, they're not the roles that you did. It was a guidance counselor and but look at the teacher. Event planner, fundraiser, you have to do fundraising, project manager, consultant, those above and those below will come to the teacher, private investigator, canteen helper, and the list goes on. Let's go again. The teacher is mentor, subject lead, QEC convener, external moderator, PD, facilitator, lead teacher. These are what teachers face. But we have to also consider that the teacher is an individual. The teacher is a person. So with all of those duties, the teacher is son, daughter, father, brother, spouse, mother, everything else. We cannot forget that. How much of us wouldn't like to see teacher on summer vacation and really enjoying our summer vacation, but our summer vacation is going to be used for some PD or something else. We have to go into school physically, or your phones are going to be ringing. Something's going to be happening. So we are saying, we are recommending to review and revise the policies to reduce administrative duties, provide adequate planning and preparation time, implement flexible leave policies, and support mental health initiatives. Remember now, when we talk about health of a person, it's not only physical, we are talking about their psychological, mental, spiritual well-being. So we cannot forget, again, remember, the teacher is an individual, the teacher is a person. I am recommending at this time that everything needs to be timetabled in the teacher's timetable. This should include contact time, planning and preparation time, and administrative duties. Based on the suggested sessions for the different categories of teachers, all these should be factored in the given sessions for the week. Existing average about 28 sessions for senior teachers or person with special responsibilities, about say 35 sessions for a regular teacher, and that would be approximately using a 30 to 40 minutes per session. We are overloaded. Teachers, again, we are individuals. And if we are going to set a timetable for the teacher, remember that the teacher has to plan. If the teacher doesn't plan, then that is going to lead to chaos. When you go into the classroom, it's going to be hard for you to deliver. And at the end of the day, they are looking for results, not mediocre results, because remember now we have NEI and all other watchers out there, for the teachers. And then you're going to say the school is a failing school or whatever. And everything that goes wrong, the teacher is blamed for it. So listen to me now. It's like I'm saying to you, Lord, me can't take it no more. I think that's what the teachers are saying. Or they could be singing this tune. All this work and what did it get me? All this work and what did it get me? Well, you have the answer. You are teachers. We all are educators. Remember, we are persons, we are individuals, and we need to have a work-life balance. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. And so now we're going to ask Mrs. Haynes Davidson to make her comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, kindly permit me to adopt such a beautiful protocol established earlier by Professor Barnett and to spend my time looking at something that is sometimes overlooked by those who don't know better when we talk about teachers and teacher well-being. We're looking at the support that should exist for teachers. Support in terms of mentorship and peer. We're looking at administrative and leadership support. And then there's a parental engagement and the community support. I know when I began in 1996 at the Michael College, we were exposed from first year to a particular association that came in to say to us, you're just entering one of the, if not the noblest, very noble profession called teaching. And for you to understand why you're here, you must understand first yourself. I remembered being told that teaching is a calling, and it doesn't matter how academically sound you are. If your heart is not in it, we're going to have serious troubles. And so I considered why I left a particular institution, walked from a different profession, and walked into guidance and counseling. I reflected on that, and I was able to answer that question in a very simple way. No child should have my negative experiences and not have a support system in place. And so, as an educator and being exposed to theories and practices, I appreciated why the teacher makes or breaks a society. Some persons don't recognize that if your education system is not good, if your teachers are not well, consider what society you may have. I remembered my daughter telling me what teacher said, and I had the audacity to correct her. And she said, "You're not my teacher." Now, this is after I have graduated from Teachers College. And she goes, "You're not my teacher. Teacher says," and the teacher made an error. So I left it alone and had a talk with teacher, because in those days, teacher says or teacher said, that's the story. I don't business if you're a teacher. You don't teach me. You're not my teacher. Teacher says. We have lost that somewhat when we consider some of the things we have not been consistent at. One of them is mentorship for teachers. And mentorship is very wide, but it can be very impactful. When you consider as a teacher who you are to the society, the critical role you play, then it is important that when you are coming into the profession and coming out of college, coming out of university, mentorship is necessary, because mentorship is not just telling you what you should or shouldn't do. It's a learning relationship. It is a collaborative relationship. It is one that allows for a young teacher, not young person, but young teacher, to enjoy the experiences of someone who you have already walked the walk. And so may I borrow from when I listen to persons who have been working, at a certain school in Westmoreland and prefer to navigate that point, what you're thinking about for us, how much of a positively strong mentor she would be to persons just coming in, because you're sharing your experiences, you're sharing knowledge, and you're helping the young teacher to navigate something that's very complex but can be super simple. The peer support is also critical, and peer support for a teacher is that we are having similar experiences. Are we willing to share those? And so it comes back to, as an individual, how much do you really care about people in general? And how do you see your peer? Are you someone who is afraid in that you're thinking, oh, I could never share. I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to tell her. I don't want him to be better than me. I don't want him to excel. So it comes back to the heart. If I care about you enough, I will be willing to share with you. How did I get past this? Yes, we have to admit, we have seen the fights. We have read about them. We have heard about them. There are things that are happening that should never be happening in the schools. But how do I, as a teacher, stand to say to a teacher, you know, I made this error once with a child, and this is how this was corrected. I'm observing that you're facing something similar, and feel comfortable enough to say I handled it incorrectly at the time, but since I've done further training, I've been exposed to mentorship, and this is what we can do together to make it better. Or am I so caught up in looking good that I want to see you fail? And so while we must honestly identify the gaps, we also look at us. How do I make your life a little less stressful on the job? So you're the head of the department. Why am I not turning in what is expected of me? Why am I forcing you to want to pull ranks, so to speak? If we're talking about peer support and mentorship, then every individual as a teacher needs to reflect. I don't like that one at all. She's all right. I don't know who she'll play. She lucky. Instead of getting caught into that narrative, step back. We're not getting everything that we deserve from our society, but I can make your day a little brighter as a teacher. When you look at administrative leadership support, I love the fact that you mentioned how we plan. And this now goes to leadership that puts people in the center of all decision making that affects the individual. And so teachers don't necessarily want to hear, this is the timetable, take it, run with it. No questions asked. But they want to be a part of, when we complete our needs assessment, how best do you position me? Why would you just decide, all right, you go teach over there, so you go teach over there, so. How about that dialogue? Where is the conversation? Because we're being specific as we look at administrative leadership support. And so if we don't have the type of leadership that is not just transformational or considering who you are as a person, now we're going to be getting the pushback. And yes, teachers are people and they're people first. And I will always tell them, you are irreplaceable in your families. Believe you me, something happens to me today, guidance and counseling must continue in Jamaica. They'll find somebody to replace me, but not in the family. And the community and parental engagement is critical, because when parents are allowed to be more than just visitors to the school, because there is a fundraising, it helps the teacher to move with the child in a manner that supports positive growth and development. It seems about my time, but I'm sure there are questions that we'll discuss later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we turn over to Mr. Francis.
Ladies and gentlemen, both in the physical audience and online, good evening. I was a little bit nervous when I sat there and I saw Prof started introducing people from the middle, because I was saying to myself, Lord God, is me going to have to talk first? But I'm happy that when she started calling people up to do their opening remarks, she started with Mrs. Bailey. But I'll be very brief, because a lot of what I have come to talk about, certain aspects of it has already been said, and I imagine other panelists will share on. But before I go into what I want to say, I want to situate myself a little bit. So yes, I do research in inclusive education, but my bread and butter issue is educational leadership and policy. And when I look at teacher well-being and teacher working conditions, there is a part of it that, yes, it is the individual teacher's responsibility, but then the solutions have to come from three levels in my imagination of it. We have to talk about solutions coming from the system level, we have to talk about solutions coming from the institutional level, and we have to talk about solutions coming from the individual level. But before we go into what all of those solutions might be, we have to have an appreciation of what is happening in our education system. And we don't have to look too far to see what is happening. We have the issue of attrition from the profession. So we have teachers who go to Teachers College, I'm one of them, right here at UTech, were trained in the art and science of teaching, but have left the classroom. What are the reasons that teachers are leaving the classroom? We have the second issue where teachers are migrating from Jamaica to teach in other jurisdictions, to teach in Asia, to teach in countries like Abu Dhabi, Japan, to teach in the United Kingdom, to teach in the US. So we have our teachers who they get the training, the world-class training that is offered in the Jamaica teacher training programs, and they migrate. And then we have the issue of, which is one of the main things I want to talk about today, ill health in terms of physical health and mental well-being for teachers. And I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier, where we have to think of it coming from several different levels. We have to think of it coming from the system level, from the institutional level, and from the personal, the individual level. And let's start with the last one first. Yes, it is important for the teacher to think about what it is in their practice that they're doing that is causing the burnout, that is causing the ill health, that is causing all the stress that teachers experience. And we saw Mrs. Bailey put that teacher up there, the stressed out teacher with all of that. But aside from all of what an individual teacher might be doing, perhaps in need of mentorship, as Mrs. Davidson said, not planning themselves their lessons properly, not budgeting the time accordingly, there are institutional challenges and there are systemic challenges that lead to teacher burnout, that lead to ill health, that lead to a reduced, I want to say, significantly poor working conditions for teachers, and that impacts their well-being. And we can think about it from the policy perspective in that there are very few policies, at least from my understanding of the situation, let me say it that way, maybe a limitation of my research, that safeguard teachers' well-being. So yes, we do have leave policies, but then how flexible are these leave policies? How much time is given for leave policies? We're here talking about issues of well-being and mental health. Does our leave policy consider in very real and practical ways mental health days that are separate and apart from sick days? So when you give a teacher a limited amount of leave and the poor teacher going to feel stressed because if I take a day from school, my students are going to be so behind, that teacher is not going to feel compelled to take that kind of leave. So you have that particular situation. We have a situation as well where at the institutional level, yes, we will have that one-off PD that talks about, oh, the mindfulness and the meditation. And some schools will carry the teachers to practice a little bit of yoga and they have the fitness club after school. But then you do all of these activities and you come back to the same stressful situations that are created by the institution. So unless we cause some amount of change at the system level and some amount of change at the institutional level, the changes that teachers are making at the personal level will not bear much fruit. So I think I will cap it right there and allow the discussion to follow.
You're getting me excited right there. So now we want to invite Mr. Malava to share his comments.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Let me I was a little bit worried about getting here because Messi is creating a mess. But I just want to say to Prof that I chose UTech over Messi. Yeah. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this matter. Certainly, it's one of the rare occasions where I am seeing a summit looking at teacher well-being and working conditions. Usually, when you go to these summits, it's about educational leadership. It's about teaching and learning and how to effectively engage in that process. But we don't often look at teacher well-being and conditions of service as a means to an end. So I just want to acknowledge that UTech being UTech is really and truly doing pioneering work. I want to also say that, from an individual perspective, teachers have a responsibility to take care of themselves. And they need to take that responsibility seriously. There are different leave facilities within the system that teachers are to use and utilize it. Far too often, we find teachers not wanting to utilize their leave facility because they are worried that a day out, there is a Tom who may not get his lunch. There is a Michelle who may want to speak to her because Michelle is having problems at home and such things. So it's important for teachers to recognize that if they drop down tomorrow, the position will be advertised the following day. You know, there's a saying, colleagues, that the working conditions, it's a saying within the JTA. The working conditions of the teacher is the learning condition of the child. Yeah. And what that means is that a teacher working in a particular environment, it's going to impact the learning of that child. Now, there are some critical things that impacts on our working conditions. One, resource constraints. Now, let me just put it within context. The government currently spends $17,000 per child to its schools as part of grants. When research have shown that the unit cost to educate a child within Jamaica is somewhere around $87,000 at the high school and $50-something thousand at the primary school. And these things impacts on a school's ability to fix certain things and do certain things. Yeah. The way I went to school, the conditions of the classroom when I went to school, 20 years ago, it's the same condition that exists today. Our teachers are operating in environments that are hot, overcrowded, under-resourced. Yeah, but yet they are called upon to do more and more and more. And, you know, the truth is, and I hear you, Prof, but, you know, research out there has pointed to some critical things as it relates to teacher migration, for example. And it's interesting that you have pointed to the fact that there's a decline in the number of persons that are going into teachers' college because we are feeling the effects at the schools. I can tell you, for example, at my school, I am short of 4 teachers. And I advertise left, right, and center, virtually, physically, every alley. I still can't get no teacher. Because our teachers are migrating and they're leaving. And research out of UWI has pointed to some factors: low salaries, lack of resources, poor school leadership, poor working conditions, negative behavior of students. Now, when teachers go overseas, they will have to deal with negative behavior for students, but at least they are paid a salary. Yeah. And they're given resources, significant resources to engage these students. So I want to put that within context because it's very important. You know, we are dealing with several things, and I note with interest that 2 quick points, that the government, for example, has borrowed $133 million to build 5 or 6 STEM schools across the island. And I'm saying to myself, within the context of the poor infrastructure in our country as it relates to the classroom environment, why is the government borrowing this when we don't have a space constraints within our education system as it is? I mean, parents really literally stop having out them lots right now. So there's a decline in the number of students within that are going to our schools, but yet they are going into poor infrastructure. But the government is building more schools. Half of that money, ladies and gentlemen, could have been used to effectively transform our classrooms. But yet we're not doing that. And the final point that I will make before I take my seat is, from a leadership perspective, there is certainly a need, and I see my colleague from NCEL here, but there's certainly a need for leaders to practice more servant leadership, yeah, to offer more support to our colleagues, to engage them, because one thing I've learned as a leader is that when teachers and members of staff believe that you care, they will go the extra mile. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Getting some solid points here. Now over to you, Dr. Shakespeare.
To be or not to be? That is the question, ladies and gentlemen in the audience and online.
Good evening, and thank you so much for making this your place of choice. So I have been tasked with talking about the impact of teacher well-being on students' outcomes. And much has been shared that can be connected to that topic, a lot of rich insights. And so what I'm going to do is try to add without repeating as much as is possible. So we know that teacher well-being is tied to teacher job satisfaction. And a teacher's satisfaction is connected to your students' outcomes because we give of our best when we are at our best. We always talk about Jamaica's resilience and our Jamaicans and our resilience and our tenacity and our ability to do much with little. And we have sung it so well that it has seeped into our bloodline, and we celebrate it rather than try to really work towards changing that. So yes, we can make bread out of not much, but should we be doing that? And it is at what expense? You'd have heard from my colleague panelists the implications of it on teachers and on their performance and on their family life. That's an important part of the mix that we have to give attention to. So when we are satisfied with our jobs, and I say we because I consider myself a teacher, right? We're all teachers here. And when we give of ourselves in a context that is conducive to our well-being, you're getting more than 100% because many are giving 100% on nothing. So you can imagine that impact. We know that the well-being of teachers, given its significance and direct connect to student performance, leads to experiences where your students are doing well. And they're doing well because they're flourishing in a space where the environment is positive. There is a psychosocial environment that is contributing to their experiencing, and that comes from you. When you're placed in a classroom, what happens at that micro level is between you and the students. Whether they leave with a good experience or a bad experience, they're not seeing the other factors. They're not seeing the other levels that contribute to it. They're just seeing you. And so when Miss mentioned the teacher having that authority and the child valuing what the teacher says, it is because in a context where there is that good relationship between teacher and students, you are going to find that rapport, that level of confidence, that willingness to do what the child needs to do well. A teacher too who has a level of satisfaction with his or her job is more than likely to be more engaged. And a teacher who is more engaged is more interactive and more innovative and more willing to engage differentiation in terms of strategies and activities that they involve their students with. That teacher is more willing to go the extra mile with students. 40 students in a classroom, and those students, whether at the primary or secondary level, are doing well. Why? Because a lot has been invested by the teacher. So the quality of the teacher's working environment, as you would have heard, the quality of the relationship between teachers and students, those are significant contributors to the experiences in the learning environment. But one of my colleague panelists spoke about teachers understanding self and what she was told as a young teacher. Interestingly, I shared the link in my high school group and somebody said, oh, she was my classmate from MICO 96. All right. So she spoke about self-understanding, and the literature does tell you that self-realization is an important element in this dynamic. That whole process of understanding oneself, accepting one's true purpose and nature, leads to a sense of fulfillment and knowing yourself deeply. When you know yourself deeply, you're better able to give. So you see, this whole business of teaching is a profession that requires passion. It's no joke. When I started working, I started at Edwin Allen High School, and I heard two of the older folks talk about teaching and lamenting the state of teaching and the quality of teachers that they were getting. And they comment, I won't necessarily share here, but I listened as a young girl, and they spoke about teaching going somewhere to a particular animal. And the other man said, no, that particular animal has come to teaching. When people come to teaching without passion, without a natural desire to give and to really be a part of the change, then you have challenges where they're in spaces with issues, but then you have less desire to push. All right, so on the matter of the various factors that you shared from that US study, I too looked at it, and they did mention the salary. Yeah. And Prof did mention that despite the salary, people are still staying. Why? Embedded in every teacher who truly values his or her profession is a natural desire to build the student, to build the community, to build Jamaica, to make a better impact on the world. And in doing so, the teacher is building him or herself. So it becomes a kind of a symbiotic relationship. I'm giving and I'm expecting you to go out there and give and do even greater than I have done. So that candle that lights, that sends you off to light the rest of the world. So we expect, though, regardless of all of that, an appreciation of the fact that eventually, no matter how good it is, it will run out. So there is a need to ensure teacher well-being. And what does that require? We will be hearing a lot from each other about that tonight, but it does require a dedicated investment in this profession. We talk about professionalizing it through JTC. We've been doing a lot of talking. We would have seen the recommendations from the Patterson report. We now need to get it done. So professionalizing it, we see some of the barriers to that, but really and truly, everything to do with professionalizing the profession still rests with the teacher. So you need to go get professional development. You need to go do this. You need to ensure you get your master's. But at what point do we stop and say, okay, let me do a temperature check. How are you doing? How much of you am I really getting in this experience? Are you at your optimal? And in what ways can we help? And by we, I'm tapping into the levels that Stephen mentioned. At all levels, in what ways can we help? Do we continue to do the same things because we're getting some amount of results? Or do we stop and say, at some point in time, okay, let us replenish, let us invest, and let us give our teachers a context and a climate in which they can flourish even more than they are doing now. And so I'll pause at this time.
Thank you, Dr. William Shakespeare. Well, Dr. Smith, you had been duly introduced in your absence, so you may go on up and give us your bit. 5 minutes.
I'm reliably informed. Good evening, everyone. I'm reliably informed that he who speaks long is not invited to speak again, and I'd like an opportunity to speak. So I'm going to make my remarks very short. I want to first of all take the opportunity to thank University of Technology for organizing this forum and really look at something that I think is very topical. We have heard our system leaders repeatedly talk about the importance of health and wellness, and the optics of it sounds great, but what we have found is a misalignment between what we say and actually what we do. And so there's a lot of rhetoric around it. And colleague panelist also mentioned that, so there's a lot of talk of it and some tokenism that we recognize is happening. And so we need to move towards supporting teachers, because, we can't have a better quality, country than the quality of the education system. And it's directly linked to the quality of the teachers that we have. And we have to not only ensure that we have teachers, we are able to attract new teachers to the profession, but we must also be able to retain the existing ones that we have. So teacher burnout is something that is serious. And as the Jamaica Teachers Association president, it is something that I have particularly focused on and had the opportunity to speak extensively on what needs to be done in this regard. Empty platitudes bear little for a person who is suffering on the verge of a mental meltdown. Because the truth is, colleagues, it is much easier to prevent a mental breakdown than to cure one. And so, we have to look at how we balance the multiplicity of tasks that are involved in educating children. We have to look towards solutions. And so one of the things I've learned in my tenure in leadership is that, I tell people, when you get up to speak, I don't give more than 5 minutes, and you get 1 minute to outline the problem and 4 minutes to give me solutions towards the problem. And that is how we must be looking, always towards solution. And one of the things we have to look at is the flexible leave facilities. And my President-elect of the JTA, Mr. Malava, also mentioned that there is almost a sense of guilt many teachers feel when they have to take a day you know, and we have to kind of rubbish this type of thinking. We have to understand that if you are not in a right mental place, you are not fit then to be able to lead that class that depends on you and those children who themselves carry many of their burdens. And that is one of the things that makes teaching so challenging. The fact that you have to understand how to manage and have mental boundaries. Otherwise, you run the risk of taking on all the challenges and the issues your children are facing, whether it is because there's something going on at home. There, some of them were exposed to physical, emotional, sexual abuse. And teachers have to be able to cope with that. The other thing is we have not built a rigorous enough, what I would classify as culture to seek mental health support. You know, psychoanalysis is a real thing. And sometimes we just need somebody to talk about, you know, or with about the challenges that we face within the job. And we oftentimes, you know, underscore the issues that are created in terms of the mental health of our teachers when we gloss over the fact that our schools are grossly under-invested in, and this has been over several decades. So I always tell people, I said, this is not a JLP or PNP issue. This is a systemic issue we have in the country. We have underinvested in our schools, and as I've been noted as saying before, that if you were to check many of the parents, the classroom the children sit in look exactly the same, like when they attend the school. And if you go to the grandparents, it look exactly the same. And if you don't mind job, you go to the great-grandparents, they end up in the same situation. And so our schools, the environment itself is not very engaging. I walked around with a colleague the other day as I was doing some school tours, and I said to one of them, I said, you know, we have to make a deliberate effort as a nation to change the aesthetics of many of our schools. They look like little prisons. There are grills on the door. The windows themselves are little black holes. And I'm saying just the space that you're in. Sometimes you'll find educators when they go overseas and they go into another classroom space, just it's a lot more inviting. And so we must not underplay, you know, the Japanese said the feng shui of the room and the flow, the energy that that space creates. Some of the places are not painted, and that actually impacts your mental health, your outlook, your optimism. And so, you know, there are many factors that play into it. Added to that, the lack of resources to actually accomplish the job you have been given. For the vast majority, it would be mentioned in my profile that I was a school inspector. I've traveled the length and breadth of this island. Every single parish I've been in, inspecting schools, measuring what's happening in our schools. And I tell you this, that what I've come across are, in the vast majority of cases, are teachers that are deeply committed to what they do. They're passionate about it. They want to bring about the change with the children, but oftentimes they have to go in their own pockets to resource the schools. I remember meeting a young teacher who her principal said the school didn't have any money, but she was still expected to produce the report cards. She had to buy her own paper, go to the library because she didn't have a printer, print the report cards and have them ready. And this is the reality. That gives me one opportunity to just segue into leadership, which is also important, because leadership can create an enabling environment or it can create a debilitating environment. And we have to be mindful of that. I'm happy to see my colleague here from NCEL, because that is very important. You know, I used to lecture a course in NCEL, emotional intelligence. We have to be able to leverage and understand of emotional intelligence, social and emotional learning, to create learning environments, to create work engagements that are wholesome and that empower our employees. Too often, teachers will cite one of the issues is that the leadership of the school can create a toxic environment. Sometimes it's other co-workers who create a toxic environment. And oftentimes, if you don't have the skill set as a leader to help to parse through and to help to create the context, then what we will quickly find is that the entire school becomes somewhere that drains your energy. Yeah. And that's something we have to, you see, if you love what you do, as one famous philosopher said, you'd never work a day in your life. Yeah. And as leaders, we can help to create that enabling environment, create that sense of passion. But also, as I wrap up, is the need for us to fully come to grips with the fact that anywhere in this world where teaching is practiced, it's a stressful job. Education International, a World Health Organization 2019 put out a report that indicated that teaching is considered one of the most stressful jobs. You don't have much downtime. In many other jobs, you're probably by yourself with your computer. You have some deadlines to meet. And I've worked in private sector. I've worked in other fields. And I always tell people, I said, the toughest job I've had is when I was a teacher, sitting in that classroom, because it's constant, that constant engagement. And, you know, high school teachers, very difficult for them. But you know who? Sometimes I feel very sorry for the early child and the primary because they don't get a break. Sometimes they struggle to even have a lunch because they don't have any non-contact. They're constantly engaged with children, and that creates more. But I will have my seat now. We can discuss further as the issues continue to boil over. Thank you.
I want to thank all our panelists for their comments, but we want to take a little break because we want to take a little snippet of a video for our sponsor this evening. If it is ready, you can just run the video now so that, and I'm trying my best to call the right word. You know, when you say video and it's not video, you show up your age. So I'm working hard. All right, so this is the JTA Cooperative Credit Union who have come on board to support this activity, and we are thankful to them. But I'm not hearing the sound.
It's impacting lives positively. Teacher a champion behind every great mind is a teacher. It takes work, but you show up when we need you. So we got to support your goals, build your dreams, and help you grow. We celebrate you, and we got to let you know that remember you are family. At the JTA Credit Union, you can count on us to serve you. You make the difference for everyone. Every teacher at JTA Credit Union, serving our members, impacting lives positively.
Good. Thank you, JTA Credit Union. And I want to again acknowledge our 128 persons who are online tonight with us. Welcome. And I hope you have been engaging with all of what our speakers have been saying. Now, panelists, I would love to, we want to spend a few minutes with our closeout time is 8 o'clock. I want to spend some time asking you some questions, but our viewers online are free to put their questions in the chat. We have set it up so I will get the question and they will answer. And as well as those who are in-house, you may engage. You might have a comment, not a question. You may have a comment, whatever it is, we will want you to engage. But I want to start by looking at the system and institutional level. I think that's where I want to, we can end with personally, but I really want to start there because that's where real change is. As we said, if you can change all you want with the, personally, but if the system is not changed, if it's not changed institutionally, then the impact is not that great. So I want to ask the question, why is it, I want to start right at the buildings and the one that your grandmother was in, and the thing, those, I want to start right there and ask you to think with me. Why is it that you would think that the government would not see that as an important activity to engage in? That is to develop the buildings. And you all have your mics, so you don't have to borrow mine. So you can jump in, just acknowledge, and you just indicate and I'll acknowledge you. But I want us to reflect on what could be the possible reason. I remember when my daughter was at St. Andrew High School, I'll call the name. The principal, then principal, was adamant that she has to have her development fund because that's the only way she's going to create change infrastructurally at the school. And so I'm saying now, and then we had someone do a presentation right in this, not in this room, but here at the university about being wrapped on the knuckles because she went overseas and collected monies to do things in her school. So I'm saying, what is it that you would think is driving or not driving the government to take care of the infrastructure? I see two people ready, so the two JTA people, you know, you have to watch it. You know? So let's go with,
I will yield to the president.
With the president, and then we go.
All right.
Unfortunately,
Testing.
President-elect. His
Just-
speaker call here tonight is being a student with us and a principal. Let's go.
Right.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. P. But the truth is, what we have seen is a general underinvestment in education. You see, while we tend to hear people talk very eloquently about, education is the only way out, education is important, it often rings hollow when you look in the grand scheme of things. Now, what you will find is that politicians will quickly tell you that 5.2% of GDP spent, and that's the highest we spend when compared to our Caribbean neighbors. Of course, Cuba being the only other country that would outpace us. But my mother always taught me that devil lies in the details, because 5.2% of $100 is certainly different from 5.2% of $1,000. And so the GDP of the country, I always tell people there are three types of lies: damn lies, and statistics. And so we have to be careful. Sometimes we get caught up with just talking about numbers, because the truth is we have just not invested at the pace necessary in order to kind of have the impact, the transformative impact that we need to. And it comes from a deep belief that, in some way, education will keep on trudging on. I always talk about the system level. You mentioned that word, that we really have to review the entire system, what is needed. The PE spoke about the per capita spend. The per capita spend, and if you were to convert that in US dollars and then compare it across the OECD countries, you're going to find we're somewhere in the 2,000. The average for OECD is $40,000. And so you start to realize that we are way under the expenditure that we ought to be, especially when you want to transform a system. And what we have to understand is that small island states like Jamaica, there's no version of successful, economically viable Jamaica that does not have education at the forefront of that transformation. If we embrace that concept, then you quickly start to understand that we have to start to look at the infrastructure. We have to start to look at things like the laboratories in our schools, for instance. PE mentioned about these STEM schools, and I have raised it with the minister. I've said, Minister, to be honest, let's build one STEM school as a pilot of what you want to do in the future, but let's take the money from the other 4 or 5 and use that to upgrade all the libraries of all the schools. So all the labs of all the schools. Libraries need to be upgraded too, but all the labs. And that's the type of strategic, because we have limited resources. So we have to be more strategic in the expenditure, but believe you me, the condition of the classrooms are unacceptable.
And if I might just jump in before Mark jumps in, you say labs, but I'm saying, in addition, if you just expend that money in the technical high schools, what a difference that would make. But anyway, over to you.
I will say this. Any day you go into a plane and you hear a voice says, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Captain Mark Malava speaking. Take care of yourself." Because there's one place that the plane now go and in the sea. And I say that to say that over the years, we have had persons at the helm of the ministry that really does not understand education. Yeah. And because they don't understand education, they are not able to treat with the issues that are on the ground. For too long, education is something that has been politicized. It has become a political football, bouncing from that side to that side, without recognizing that this is a national issue. And a way has to be charted, because it will transcend different administrations. I would also say that within the context of schools, there is in many instances, what I'll refer to as an apartheid education system. There are some schools that have access to more resources, and there are some schools that don't have that access. Yeah, and because those schools have to rely more on the government to provide those resources, when you compare those schools, they are way behind in comparison to some of our other schools. And there needs to be social justice, leadership from a social justice perspective, to treat with those issues, from a critical theory perspective to treat with those issues. But for the most part, our leaders lack the vision and the foresight. We keep referring to, Jamaica seems to be the only country that believes that returns on investment in education should come before investment in education itself. Yeah. And those are some real issues that we have to treat with.
Yeah. As I listen to you speak, I wonder, you know, when you say, if you get in the space and your heart is broken, you'll do something about it. So I wonder if it is that the powers that be are not going in the spaces. So if you visit the schools that fall 1 to 10 in the rank, school good, school nice. The system is working. 1 to 12, 1 to 15. But if you go down to 50, 57, worse 120, I'm certain your heart would be broken, like mine has been over the time. I just come out of, I was saying to the president, I just come out of the classroom and I just go in my car and the tears just came out without, I wasn't even expecting it. The disgrace of the labs. And I'm talking about mechanical lab and those things. Nothing is in there for the students to use. And I said, maybe you need to visit the space. Is it that they are not visiting the space? What is it? Let me hear from this side of the, all right.
Okay, good evening again. I'm saying that we are looking at, for example, TVET as one of the pillars in trend. And we are also talking about STEM and STEAM. And when we look at STEM and STEAM, all right, they say they want to build some STEM schools. And still, every teacher now is required to write our lesson plans with STEM integration. So what is it that they really want from us? We still have to, everybody should be using the 5E model and integrating STEM. And still, there's going to be some STEM schools. So it's a bit confusing at the time. Yes.
I see what you're saying. The demand is for all schools to do.
Yes,
So
integrated.
is there necessity for STEM schools? I think that's what I would hear you say.
Right, and if-
Why is there that
Right, and if
necessity?
TVET is a pillar for trend,
Trend. Mhm.
then you should be working on those labs, home economic departments, whatever, because we're saying that skills pays the bills. And we are not just looking at the contemporary or those, those long ago, we would say those are the, what type of professions? No, like traditional professions. So we are saying that it's time for us to think outside of the box. Everybody has to do that, but still you are segregating. I don't understand it, but by and by we will.
Mrs. Davidson wants to jump in.
Thank you. While we have the data, the empirical data to support much of what we talk about, we have to correct the narrative. Schools are not given $17,000 per student to operate because the education system is wider than tuition. Education, the system includes the payment of salaries, the other resources that school gets, but many times we speak to just the amount given per student per tuition through the grant. And so that is something we need to correct, because as a country, when the country presents, when you look at us from a global standpoint, they're not looking at $17,000 per student for tuition. They're looking at all that you're spending on education, whether it is meeting the demands, yes or no. So we need to start from that narrative. We are going to look at the needs that are not being met. And if you're looking at a chair that is broken, you can't say, oh, it's just a small break. The chair is broken. That's a given. But let's look at, when we talk about solutions, how many times, and I don't want to be misunderstood, but how many times do we invest, even if it's not enough, schools and initiatives that we ourselves destroy? And so while we speak to the more that is needed and everything you have said, if we do that as a country, it certainly will get us closer to Vision 2030 or becoming that Jamaica becoming a developed country. But we also need to teach where schools are given resources that are not utilized, Schools are given books for students to use, and a year after, the books are still in the book room, sealed, signed, beautifully put away or eaten down. So we have to look at, I love how you put it, the varying levels, because until we begin to be honest and objective about it, what we'll have is you over there, I'm over here. But all of us here are part of the education system. And so when we begin to seriously speak to, let's address this. And so I love what Dr. Smith said. It doesn't have anything to do with which party is in power. It has to do with a government approach. And so when you have this type of forum and we begin to examine, okay, what exists? How do we enable those around us to make use of it? We're speaking to teachers' mental health. And yes, the Education Act speaks to the support from the government for teachers in this regard. It is in it. And so there is, and yes, Dr. Smith, it might not be enough. And we really need to make deliberate attempts of broadening scopes and providing more. But you put a system in place for teachers to access that external help for their mental well-being. And they will tell you, you have a meeting with 600 teachers in a space, and they're like, what? When? Where? And you're saying, but this exists. The bulletin has been sent to you from 2019. Huh? No, we don't know about that. No, for a principal, not this, for a principal. And so in some instances, regardless of the government of the day, some things have been put in place that teachers were so probably caught up in teaching that it misses us. But then when we go into a public space, we say, oh, we need. There is an integrated services delivery that the ministry has initiated since 2020. And the funding is available to teachers to access that external support, because at some point we have to recognize that this teacher, as masterful as she is and skillful and tech-voc as she is, she's a person. And it doesn't mean that because she's getting a salary that she's readily able to seek that psychological support. And so there is a system in place to assist. But maybe if I ask many of you, did you know of this before? You might say, no.
Precisely.
And so it takes
Precisely.
us,
So
and it
if you
takes
are,
us
if-
to two things. It
Yeah.
takes us to two things, that we must ensure that we are probably changing our mode of communicating, because there are teachers will not know of simple things, and you're surprised by it. Truth be told, the bulletin goes to school. Principal doesn't necessarily see it because the principal might have given access to a secretary who determines what goes further or what goes there. So we do have that myriad of challenges. And so maybe we are now moving through, because I've seen some changes as it relates to how we communicate with the public as to what exists, because the public has a right to demand of the education system,
And
because
we have
because
to do
the
that.
act tells you that the minister has the power to ensure the education of the society, the spiritual, the health, and the educational aspect of the society. And so but you can't ask in a very objective way for things if you don't know they exist. And so, yes, the gaps are there, and we have to seriously know, Dr. Smith, say, yes, enough is enough. And we have persons as ourselves and others who are saying, let's do something about this, because
Yeah.
we know the issues. And you talk about how the buildings look, and a school a school is just done, and you walk in, graffiti. No, that's not the government.
Yeah,
And
but
so that's why it goes back to what Stephen said.
Mhm.
And it means, therefore, that you might be at UTech, I may be at Mike or elsewhere. It is time that we literally sit together and say, we already know the problems. Let's move to fix it.
Right, and I think just before Stephen comes in, the point of you see a problem, and it's a simple fix. In this case, it's a communication problem. So if you send out bulletin and people don't get bulletin, then is bulletin the way to go? Is it okay to say I've sent it out? I haven't sent it out, because if you send bulletin and it doesn't go to who you want, then you need to change the strategy. So that's simple. Yeah. To shift. Mhm.
To get the information out. I'm just sure the information.
Yeah. Or let's hear from Stephen now.
Bring the discussion back to the initial question, and then I'll go back to something else about the building. One of the first things that happened in my teacher training program is that we had to talk about a philosophy
You're
of
on.
education. I wasn't on. We had to talk about our philosophy of education. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that the Ministry of Education coined a system-wide philosophy on education. And I think that's a part of the reason why we have a lot of the problems that we have within the education system. One, people are relying on their individual philosophies on education. So we're here talking about the buildings. I believe that the buildings need to look a particular way, but Mr. Malava might not believe that the buildings need to look the same way that I believe. And so we, in our different silos, are doing many different things. And so the system is fragmented. Now, when we have a system-wide philosophy on education, yes, we've gotten there. We're making some steps toward a solution of this problem. But then we have to ask the question, how did we come to the philosophy that we have? Who does it benefit for us to have this kind of philosophy? Who does it benefit for this philosophy to say the things that it says? Because I have deeply fundamental problems with parts of that philosophy, but we don't have the time this evening for me to get into that. But we have to ask ourselves the question, how do we come to this collective consciousness as an education system to say, this is what we want, this is the direction we're going in, and so we'll have the buy-in from the top down or from the bottom up or even from the middle outwards to say, let's go in this direction. On the point of the communication and the legality of it, it is we as individuals who make up the system that sets the legal parameters within which we can operate. So if we have set legal parameters to communicate through bulletin and we realize that bulletin isn't working, we can adjust the legal parameters to communicate through other means. During the pandemic, the ministry went on this thrust to ensure that every single teacher had an email address that they can be reached through. So why have we not outfitted the legal parameters to say, okay, in addition to sending bulletin to school, we can communicate with teachers through these email addresses? Well, it seems that there's further yet to go.
All right. So is there any comment, any question from the floor? Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question here. Because of your emphasis on administration, increased administration, etc., professionalizing the profession. The JTC, to make a teaching council. But I'm asking a question here in relation to perhaps the JTA first directly. The whole issue of this, the demands, the requirements, legal, regulatory, etc. And with respect to changing the administrative processes, function, and the individuals involved in the school. So in other words, you still have principal, VP, principal secretary, and some of you may need many other positions, you know, just on a full-time basis to be able to do what the system now demands.
So you are making an assumption that the structure as it is inadequate?
No, what I'm saying is this. I think that this the structure as paid for by government has remained in the same way you talk about infrastructure. The structure has remained the same for centuries.
Sorry, just one logistic thing. Are they hearing online from the floor? I didn't hear.
My assumption is that the administrative structure has not changed over decades. Okay, but the schools are being asked to do more administratively. The reporting, the regulatory, the legal requirements have just mushroomed. So to what extent is it on the agenda between government and the negotiations to look at that structure so that the stresses that you speak to appropriately can be addressed? That is my
yeah, I think I got the gist of what you're saying. And Very short answer. The truth is, we are indeed engaging with the ministry. As for instance, the when we look at, for instance, the seems to be a better one. Yes, this is much better. Yeah, when we look at yes, I will be a short one. You know, I want to come back to speak another time. The truth is, we look at access to information. We look at various acts that may be developed over time, and it puts additional administrative pressures. So we have been engaged, and we do agitate, at time for us to be able to, get the support that we need. But what I think, to the bigger point that you have raised, is the need for us to really look at the structures which have served us for the last 60 odd years, and to look at it and see, how can we improve funding in a strategic way to ensure that the administration of schools is improved and more efficient. So we are engaged in those discussions.
And if I might jump in, one of the structures that we have to interrogate is how, and forgive me, colleagues from the JTA, but is how the JTA functions. Can you hear me now? Right, because one of the things that gets said, and this is a growth I had when I was a classroom teacher, is that my views as a classroom teacher very often don't make it into the national discourse, into the national dialogue, to the whole system discussion that is happening. And that's where I have a challenge with the JTA. It's a personal growth, but it is not only my personal growth. For far too long, the union that represents teachers is not headed by, in the strictest sense, a teacher. It has consistently over the last couple of years been headed by principals. And so when it is that we talk about now how the JTC and the union is going to agitate for better outcomes, we have to make sure that we're serving the interests of the people that we're here to talk about today, the teachers. And so until I can see that the regular rank and file teacher is ascending the ranks of the JTA, then I don't think we're going to have a very fulsome discussion of what teachers want out of the system in ways that it integrates well.
You know where are you?
Shakespeare.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Barrett. I think we can, yes, man, he has to get away with that one. I think, yes, I think it's important though that we recognize that this thing, education, is something that requires a collaborative effort. So we can belabor what the government can do, but all stakeholders have to be on the same platform for us to succeed. So the community has to be a part of it, even the infrastructure. Our kids damage the infrastructure. How do we fix it? I chair a school where we've been broken into 10 times. It's in the community, so who is doing it? We're remote. It must be. So we have to understand that as a community, as parents, as businesses within the community, it is also part of our responsibility to contribute to maintaining what we have in our spaces, and also giving back. Past students associations, PTAs, those are vital parts of what keeps school alive. So when we talk about the top 10, if we look at the role of parents and past students in the life of the top 10, we would realize they are significant players the government pays. So we also have to arrest our own little space and take up our responsibility to ensure the survival of our schools.
Yes, Dr. Gentry.
Yes, thank you. So I think we have consensus that we do not have policies in place to support our teachers, either to support their well-being, their working conditions, or to try and support them enough that they don't want to leave the classroom. We don't care about retaining, we only want to replace the teachers, right? And they can go, we replace them, right? But I would like to bring the conversation back to teacher education, because I'm a strong advocate for those of us who are engaged in the work of preparing teachers, either at the pre and in-service level, that we think about how do we help our teachers to develop the competence, the skills, the confidence to have a voice. This segues onto what you're saying, right? Teacher voice, professional autonomy, skills for advocacy are things that we need to teach very deliberately in our teacher preparation system. So until we do that, we can talk and talk and talk, but the teachers, a lot of them, they don't have that confidence to speak up for themselves. So that's something that those of us who are, working with teachers, preparing them, need to think very carefully about.
And if I can just add, to what Dr. Gentles just said.
Psychological and safe environment.
I just have
I
one
will
thing to
add.
say. I just have
You may
one thing to add. One thing I have to add
Yes, go.
on the point of teacher advocacy. If you ask most teachers who are my age and a little bit above, a little bit below, they do not know who Joan French is. They do not know what the National Union for Democratic Teachers, they don't know about that kind of thing. So when we talk about teacher voice and teacher autonomy and teacher advocacy, we do absolutely need to include that in teacher training, whether it is at the pre-service or the in-service level. We have to.
And in addition to teaching about those things, is to engage them. That's it. That's one level is just teaching, but the practice of because that's one of the areas, every time we do these kinds of things, you realize you don't have enough time to deal with the matter, because the whole matter of, several of you spoke about it, but the whole matter of how principals or school leadership give voice to the teacher is a whole nother realm of teacher well-being. And that's next year's theme. Yes, thank you. To say it again, let me hear the theme. I say something, but I don't even know. Teacher voice, yeah. Yeah, very, very important for us to see. Only a minute, please. Yes.
I just want to point out that in recent times, using the data that has been provided through PAHO and WHO, we have introduced mental health literacy in our high schools. But I'm also seeing where long before I come to college, I really need to be exposed to the skills of advocacy, critical thinking, that kind of level. And so, because sometimes in our teacher colleges, and it's just something I've observed, we go through, we just want to see. And so we'll come to the sessions and we'll do the courses and we want to see, and we're done. And then when we come into the system, application is absent. And so maybe we want to pay more emphasis, and it's a part of what they do in guidance and counseling. And so we probably need to be more deliberate. So from primary, secondary schools, at the age appropriate content, you're being taught those types of skills. And so when you come into Teachers College to do that course, you're already way ahead, and it becomes intrinsic in a manner that makes sense when you're exposed to it at Teacher College.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
I will-
you have a comment? You will all get a time here. I'll give you another time. Your 1 minute to do anything you want to do with it.
So, good evening, everyone. So my issue though, is I kind of find the whole thing so fragmented. I like your system approach to the whole business of education. And I think for me, what I observe in this country is just the whole fragmentation. So at the school level, there's a whole lot of things going on. At the university level, there's a whole lot of things going on. At the government level, there's a whole lot of things going on. And then you have the Patterson report that's coming out of some other white paper type thing. And then you actually kind of read around what has been going on. This has been going on from back in 2000, and the same issues are still sitting there on the table. And then the government is establishing budget, and you're wondering, so are they actually then working even with the Patterson team, the transformation team, in terms of identifying those issues, establishing the budget, identifying the issues so that you can start to tackle the belly of the issues basically from that? And I don't think that is happening. And I am really kind of charging my colleagues here to really play a greater role in ensuring that that system approach is used to address budget allocations and so on. All right?
But may I just quickly give her some information?
Hold on, no.
30 seconds.
He wants to answer.
Let us give you some data. So,
And I'm giving 1 minute
the
to
owner
answer.
school of business was charged with responsibility of looking at the Patterson. As it is now, the Patterson report over the next 7 years will cost $23 billion annually. Now, you're going to have to ask the question, to what extent the government is serious about this, because the government is now giving out pro-box money. In terms of, no, I have to say it, the government is now giving out pro-box money, when in all honesty, that money could have been diverted into education yeah, to help to fund the transformational agenda. And that's exactly what I'm saying. There really has not been that sort of national dialogue around it, that sort of coalesce around it. And when you look at what is happening in Barbados, for example, Mia Mottley has taken a very central role in this whole thrust for transformation. My greatest concern is that the Patterson report may end up like another
David's report.
That's my greatest concern. And I'll go further.
Remember now that we're talking about
300 teacher welfare and well-being.
Okay. Not the passenger.
No, it really impacts.
Yeah, but you have to make the link, please.
Because,
thank you.
Because that is going to, let me read the link. It impacts conditions of service.
Okay.
In a very significant way. It impacts the abilities of schools to purchase necessary resources. Yeah. When government, for example, give out one smart board, really in this day and age, not to mention the fact that many schools don't have a reliable internet, and teachers have to use their data to supplement what they're doing in a very significant way. Yeah, for the mega salary.
All right, 1 minute.
Thank you.
Well,
I have a question from from online, and it's coming to you. I think you had spoken about it earlier. It says, Mrs. Haynes, question for Mrs. Haynes Davidson, Education Director, Chief Education Director, wow. Dr. Casson Troop, in her speech at the Trent seminar held at the Convention Center, Montego Bay, mentioned $15 million allocated for teachers. That must be what you were referencing. Teachers who need to access clinical help. I have been asking about same, and my asking is without end. What say you? It's great having this summit, okay, but after it ends, then what? What are that? It should be, what are the takeaways that will be implemented? So 2 different things. You really want to know. The person wants to know about that clinical help.
Wow, I am so happy for that question because it means the teacher. So no, you see, I do have support. Dr. Troop spoke to $15 million allocated per year for this support. And what the teacher simply needs to do is speak to the guidance counselor school for the referral to be made. We don't even, the service providers are engaged through a service level agreement for the students, but for the teachers, there is no limiters, or we don't control who you go to as your clinician, as long as the person is reputable and licensed. And so all you need to do is to say, I need this service, and then the self-referral can be made. That is there for that.
Yes.
Find out though, how psychologically safe is the teacher within his or her space to say to the counselor, I am having this problem, especially in small communities. I can share with you, I had a relative teaching in the Turks, and to go to a particular doctor, she comes to Jamaica for her privacy. If I'm in a school where the collegial relationship isn't good, will I go to the counselor to say, I need a referral?
No. You're not telling the counselor. You're just simply saying, I need to be on the system. You are going to do your self-referral. You're not.
I know I'm on the system, I may become the subject.
Well, we can't solve those problems
I
here
can't
tonight.
fix those, but
So-
we know for sure though that
Yes.
teachers have been accessing the system
Mhm.
because we have to keep to our word for the teacher. And we're hoping, because in some schools, may I tell you, in some schools, it is the teachers who chose to go to the GC to say, I will just ask how the system works. And they're on the system, and that for us is important. There are other issues that may arise that we don't have that control over, but the system is in place. I want to quickly say though, it goes back to the communication, because there is an oversight committee for the recommendations for the Pattison report to be effected. And this is led by Dr. Stokes through the ETOC, and they have already started to address those. And so when I listen to the response, it reminds me of what we spoke about earlier, the communication. There's a meeting every week. We have to know, yes, all of this is happening in education, but this is not the forum for it. What it will lead to, we're not answering to Ministry of Education anymore. There's an oversight committee that we have to respond to. And so if you're right to say this is what we'll be doing based on this particular recommendation, no, you have to provide the evidence of it being done. This is a very serious step. And so we leave it there because this particular forum speaks to the teacher well-being. And yes, if we get those infrastructure and those other processes correct, it can improve the teacher as a person, because if you don't bond with your students, it makes it more difficult for the child to learn. And we do want those good results. But of course, I must take care of my teacher here.
All right, thank you. I'm going to now ask you to hold your mics. You're going to make 1 minute presentations. 30 seconds presentation after we get this comment here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I must commend UTEC for organizing this and for engaging us in conversations for us to go back to our respective spaces to think about what we can do differently and what we need to do differently to transform the system and the cultures that we see. I will start my question with my observation of the system, in that I believe we continue to perpetuate a culture of competition in our schools. And so I then ask all of the panelists in your wrap-up response, what are the best practices that you have implemented to help us? What I would love to see and hear is what is happening in your spaces, so that we don't have to look outside of Jamaica. A lot of good things are happening here and we can replicate. So I'd want for us to take away what you have been doing in your respective spaces so we can replicate to have that system-wide change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So may I ask you, nervous over this side. So let's start. 30 seconds, and I'm going to be timing you now. 30 seconds to give me your final comments on the topic of teacher well-being, working conditions, whatever you want to say. I really liked your PowerPoint presentation earlier and those things. So wrap us up here.
Okay, good evening again. I believe first and foremost that a teacher is a person, and whatever we do, we must know that the teacher has a life beyond the classroom. What I do as a teacher, I start preparing from the summer break, yes, to make it easier for me. So I'm going to take my curriculum, I'm going to divide it up, I'm going to see cluster topics to see how well I can work. But even with all of that, it is strenuous because I'm a master teacher and I carry a master timetable with 35 sessions. So it is tough. So I'm saying, I hope every teacher in Jamaica will understand that you have to take care of yourself first and foremost, because if you do not do that, you cannot help anybody else.
All right, thank you. Over to you, 30 seconds.
On my sub-themes of mentorship and peer support, I would encourage, based on in-service training, that my counselors become friendly with each other, be that accountable partner, call on somebody else, network, because that is what we're putting in place, a structure that supports and fosters good social interpersonal relationships.
Excellent. You make up for the other times.
That means I can get her seconds that you didn't give me. I'm
Okay.
joking. Okay. I think an important thing for us to accept is that everything that we've discussed here this evening, even though we went off on a couple of tangents, everything is joined up in this matter of teacher well-being and teacher health. So I don't want us to lose that particular thread of it. But to answer the question from Mr. Clark, what am I doing in my space is that I'm foregrounding a lot of Jamaican research. So we have persons like Hadia Hilton Fraser, like Mario Jackson, who are doing research on Jamaica's education system with Jamaican educators, with Jamaican students to produce policy solutions from our Jamaican education system rather than borrowing from other jurisdictions who do not fit our profile. So
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Over to you, Sir Malava.
Two things. My lived experience is so diametrically opposed to what you have been saying. And secondly, all principals are teachers. Can get over that. I want to ask
All principals are teachers.
I want to also make the point that at the JTA, for example, we have counseling on demand. So once our member wants counseling, there are numbers for the counselors that they can call and make arrangement to sit with them and speak with them. So we do that, and it's at no cost to them. As for your question in terms of what I'm doing, I have been pressing in terms of changing the organizational culture at my institution, for example. One of the things that we have done is that we have removed the competition at the school level, for example, and we are pushing to gain for teachers to be more supportive of each other.
Good, thank you. You took her 15 seconds. Over to you now, Dr. Shakespeare.
We cannot overemphasize the value of teacher well-being in ensuring the future of Jamaica and ensuring quality throughout the world, because Jamaican people are people who are global. We prepare them and they leave and they impact the world in a significant way. What are we doing here at UTech? I am part of the University of Technology's Academic Staff Union. We seek to ensure our members have the best possible experience. If it is that it is through professional visibility, professional development, we work through avenues to support them. If it's through relaxation and fun, we seek avenues. We create our own oasis because we recognize that there are limited funds and a lot of hands reaching for it. So in some ways, teachers will have to band together in their small circles and say, let's go to the river today. You know, let's build us, let's refresh us. And so that's part of the whole idea of starting with us until we get to that utopia that we see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, over to you.
Her saying about her time.
No, she took some of yours.
Let me just start off by saying, step a little to your left.
To my left.
Right.
Yeah, because he's about to speak.
Use my time. Prolonged stress can create irreversible damage to your health and well-being. And I want our teachers to understand that. Use the available days. You have casual days, use them. You have sick days, use them if it is necessary. Nobody's saying to abuse it, but listen, if you collapse on the job, you will be replaced. All right. And when you're replaced, you will not be able to make the impact you thought you could. And so the reality is
that and is adding, you know.
No. And all right. I quickly must talk about emotional intelligence. Colleagues, the JTA spends a lot of money and time. We recently did in our education summit, where we focused on emotional intelligence. We just had our family fun day. We also have as the P mentioned, our counseling on demand.
Fine.
We do several other initiatives to support our teachers' health and well-being. It means the world to us.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, here and online, tonight we discussed the topic teacher well-being and working conditions, catalysts for quality teaching. We looked at the topic from the system level. We looked at it definitely at the institutional level, and we spent a lot of time at the individual level. And tonight, I'm certain that I hear another question came in similar to yours. What are you doing? And the question also says, after tonight, what next? And, you know, one of the things for me is conversation must be had and the voices must be heard. But Jamaicans, I find that because we hear so much talk, sometimes we don't talk constructively about what needs to be done. So tonight, we have aerated quite a bit of the issues, and many of us are stimulated to do something differently. And so, ladies and gentlemen, online, I trust that you were stimulated to do differently. So the job is mine now to thank each of my panelists for engaging us, And of course, we are educators, so we travel all over the world and come back to the main point. But it was good. So I thank you so much for tonight and for your willingness to be with us. But it's not my duty to close us out. I'm going to invite Dr. Peter to come and close us out. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Professor Barrett. I think we really enjoyed tonight. What do you say? Yes. And I think we need a part 2 of this summit. It's not over yet. So as we bring the curtain down on our second Teacher Education Summit, captioned Teacher Wellbeing and Working Conditions, Catalysts for Quality Teaching, we want to thank our chair, she had to leave earlier, Dr. Oatmain, our erudite moderator, Professor Sherman Barrett, our esteemed panelists. We can give them an applause. Well done, well done, well done. Our technical support team and students as well. Our audience, and I understand there are 128 persons online. Well done. And our sponsors, JTA Cooperative Credit Union Limited, and the organizing team led by, again, our illustrious Professor Barrett. And yours truly is part of that, Nyoka, Linda Simpson, Miss Janelle Stone, Chelsea McLeish. And so I want to leave this with you. Every teacher, a champion. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. That's a wrap.
So we got to support your goals, build your dreams and help you grow. We celebrate you and we got to let you know that remember you are family. At the JTA Credit Union, you can count on us to serve you. You make the difference for everyone. Every teacher at JTA Credit Union, serving more members, impacting lives positively.
Okay, Sean.